Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome in on a Tuesday morning. So the Utah Jazz played in Portland last night. And, Portland's not a good team. They are mediocre at best. I think C-, D+ territory. You would think that, never mind, it was a disaster. The Jazz hung in there for, 8 or 9 minutes. And then Portland just started drilling them. And by halftime, it was long over. Long over. I mean, there are probably some people who thought, well, hold on till halftime. It was over before then. It is amazing that a team that can beat the Spurs and beat the Pistons can turn around and look that dreadful, give up that many points. As the head coach Will Hardy said after the game, he mentioned they are last in defense. I mean, take some pride. Try to get to 28th or 29th, okay? Now, I know, before you start screaming, I know they don't have Kessler, and rim protection matters, and rim protection would help them, and having a shot blocker back there would make them better. Totally agree. But they don't have to be this big a disaster, and they certainly don't have to do what they did against Portland. There was no point in watching that game. It was over so quickly. All right, let's get to the best of the postgame show.
Jazz recap here on DJ and PK 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott with you. The Jazz fall last night at the Blazers, 137-117. Tough night for the Jazz. Played a little bit slow, not a whole lot of defense. Jazz ended up down 20 at the half and never really got any closer. The Jazz were led by Lauri Markkanen, who had 22 points in the loss. Yusuf Nurkic with a double-double, 21 and 12. But the Jazz had a tough time slowing down Denny Avdia, who finished the game with 33 points. Shaedon Sharpe right behind at 29. Let's get to the post-game sound and Jazz head coach Will Hardy.
We're not doing a good job physically containing the ball. We're not doing a good job mentally anticipating the help on the weak side. And so tonight we just looked slow. Our brains look slow and our feet look slow. And so you end up giving up too much at the rim, and then when you do help, it's late, and you're giving up kick-out threes. They made 19 threes. They made 8 in the first quarter. Are there some that are just great shots by really talented players? Of course. But I think the theme right now defensively is we have to up our physicality, we have to up our intensity, and we have to up our anticipation on the weak side. As much as I would like to believe in my teammate guarding the ball, I have to anticipate what has to happen if they get beat. And I just felt like we were late on all those aspects tonight. Offensively, it wasn't our best night, and you still turn in 117 points. Our team is top half of the league offensively, and we're last defensively. It takes accountability of each individual for us to have any collective accountability on that side of the ball. Defense is tiring. Defense is not fun, but defense is what gives you the opportunity to win. We can't show up to the games thinking that we're just going to outscore everybody. Like, that's an unsustainable approach. And right now, where we are as a team and as a program, we're trying to build sustainable habits, a sustainable approach for long-term success. And our focus on the defensive side of the ball individually has to go up. I think there's a lot of commentary about people's stats, and stats end up getting people paid, but defense is what's going to give us a chance to win.
You mentioned physicality on the defensive end, but how much was that a factor on the other side of the ball tonight, too, just maybe in tonight's loss?
Yeah, they do a good job of pressuring. They've got big, physical, athletic wings. We're 26 for 49 in the paint. I think there's 7 or 8 of those shots that we normally make that we just missed. I also thought we made some questionable decisions at the rim in different moments. It's a combination, but I do think that, we talked as a team at the end of the first quarter and then again at halftime that we needed to do a better job of screening as a group. We can't just rely on Nurk to get everybody open. We play a lot of actions that are small, and they were trying to maintain their matchups. And so everybody has a responsibility to bend their knees and brace for contact and try to help their teammates get open. So, yeah, I think, physicality ultimately is why we lost the game tonight on both sides of the ball.
Talked in one of these press conferences at the beginning of the year that, you guys had looked in the mirror in the first couple of years when you guys were last in the league defensively and said, hey, this isn't working, we need to change our style of play on that end as well. And then, Walker got hurt as well. But what kind of style of play do you want to see defensively? What do you want to have be kind of the identity of Jazz basketball defense, if you will?
Well, I think we've identified the type of shots that we're trying to take away, but we need more of a scramble mentality on every possession. Right now, we are late mentally, and we do not have the athleticism as a group to make up for that physically. It takes a lot of anticipation to do those things possession after possession. Defense takes a relentless level of competitiveness because there are so many situations that happen in every game. And am I supposed to go over the screen or under the screen? Well, the reality is that doesn't matter as much as not getting screened. Stop running into the screen. That is the only answer that never works, is just running into the screen and dying. On the weak side, am I supposed to take away the rim, or am I supposed to say, well, we have a priority kind of list of you're going to get put in a bad spot sometimes defensively. And when in doubt, take away the rim. And then when you're scrambling on the weak side, a lot of it is personnel recognition. If two people are equal, you'd like to take away the corner three. If two people are not equal, you have to try to make a decision on which one you'd prefer to shoot. But ultimately, I'd like for our identity to be we can play a couple of different styles because, like I've said, I don't envision a world where we're going to be able to play one coverage for 82 games and through the playoff, run. And so, yeah, we will continue to adjust and, try to identify different schemes as a staff that can help. But I think right now we've generated a pretty good defensive shot profile, but we're not doing a very good job of contesting those shots at a high rate. Believe me, it's a collective effort, coaches, players, in order to make improvements in that area. It's crazy for how good our offense has been, how little we actually talk about it as a group. Defense is what we're attacking every day, and it's what we'll continue to attack until we get it right. And, I'm the person that takes the responsibility for how our team performs. I come and talk to you guys every day, and I'm never going to duck my responsibility in terms of leading our group. And my expectation is that everybody on our team take responsibility for their individual play.
Kind of related, you guys played the Thunder next game. We talked to their coach about why their defense is so good, and they say, hey, this starts with personnel. They draft really long, athletic guys who are defense-first guys. Do you have the personnel to play defense well in this league?
I think any group of people can perform to a certain level. I don't want to put a limitation on our group at all on that side of the ball. Believe me, if I didn't believe in the ability for a group of people to outperform the sum of their parts, or if I didn't believe in the ability for individuals to grow and get better, then this would be a horrible profession for me. I go to bed with that belief. I wake up with that belief. My job is to hold our team accountable, but my job is also to teach them, to inspire them, to give them hope. So yeah, I don't want to put any limitations on our team, to say that any group like, oh, they just can't. That would be a terrible way to go about this every day.
There is Jazz head coach Will Hardy. The Jazz fall to the Blazers 133-117. The Jazz are back at it coming up tomorrow night. They'll be in Oklahoma City to take on the defending champion Thunder. The game will tip off at 6 o'clock. Pre-game coverage begins at 5.
All right, there is the best of the post-game show. When we come back, the Utah Mammoth were also on the road. Different result, different experience for them at Madison Square Garden. We'll get to that next. Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome in on a Tuesday morning. The Utah Mammoth on the road playing the Rangers in Madison Square Garden, and a dramatic finish goes their way. They come home with 4 points on the 3-game road trip to Gotham, the Big Apple, and New Jersey. Let's get to the best of the postgame show.
DJ and PK, the Utah Mammoth erased 2 separate deficits, killed a late penalty, and beat the New York Rangers 3-2 in overtime. On Monday night at Madison Square Garden, Sean Durzi with the overtime game winner, 66 seconds into the 3-on-3, and the Mammoth come home taking 2 of 3 on this road trip to start 2026. Beat the Islanders 7-2 Thursday, lost 4-1 at the Devils on Saturday, and came from behind twice to defeat the New York Rangers at Madison Square Garden 3-2 on Monday night. It was a game where the Mammoth dominated. 5-on-5, even strength, outshot the Rangers 26-14, but got into some penalty problems in the second period. And the Rangers able to capitalize twice. Utah then, as I said, killed that late penalty in the third period to force the game to overtime. Getting the scoring started for Utah just 4 minutes and 11 seconds after they fell behind 1-0 in the second period. Who else but Dylan Guenther, his 21st.
They're promptly turned away by Ian Cole. Here's Guenther flying in. Guenther shoots. Pad save off the post and in. Dylan Guenther scores to tie the game at 1.
15th goal out of 21 this year for Guenther that ties a game or gives Utah the lead. Utah was without Guenther in the third period. He took a big hit, missed 13 minutes of game time, and was not out there with Utah trailing in the third. So 1-1, Mammoth take 2 penalties simultaneously. Brandon Tanev, Alexander Kerfoot down 5-on-3 in a 1-all game. Rangers took a 2-1 lead. We went to the third. Mammoth were trailing. But Michael Carcone got his second goal in 2 games and got the equalizer for Utah.
At the center red line, Justin Dowling gave it away, and Carcone penetrates the offensive zone. Carcone backs his way in and scores! Michael Carcone breaks out the bulldozer and plows Utah's second goal into the back of the net.
And after killing that big penalty, we went to overtime, and Utah didn't waste much time before Sean Durzi was there to put the puck in the back of the net.
Lawson Krause has been fantastic the last several weeks, really all season. He's on the ice right now with Schmaltz and with Durzi. Schmaltz, pass across. Durzi trying to pass it back. It comes to Krause. Krause, Schmaltz, back door, and they score! Sean Durzi wins it in overtime here at Madison Square Garden.
So the Mammoth now back tied for that wildcard spot in the Western Conference. After all that, headed home for 24 of their final 39 games in the regular season, starting with a 7-game homestand that opens on Wednesday at 7 p.m. against Ottawa. We'll have it for you on the AM side. 1280, the KSL Sports Zone. But let's get back to the game and let's hear what Michael Carcone said after tying things up in the third and getting another big goal for the Mammoth.
As a whole, mentally engaged was the word Krause used coming off the first. You guys were in this one. I guess how do you elevate where you guys were in the second period to the way you finished?
Yeah, I thought we played them well all night, to be honest. They capitalized on power plays, and I'm proud of the boys. We stuck with it there in the third period and came out and got the win.
What can you say about the pressure applied in the third to stay on?
Yeah, we knew we were playing well. We just wanted to get pucks behind them, play the right way, and eventually it would go in, so we were just being patient.
And then just obviously celebrating an OT win with Durzi. I know he was really wanting that one coming out of the box after that penalty.
Yeah, I think his head might have grown 3 sizes, but I'm happy for him. He deserves it. He's a big part of our team and creates a lot of offense, so it's nice to see him get one.
When this team is rolling, there's contributions up and down the lineup. Again, tonight you've had a lot of goals recently. What are you seeing out of this group when they have that offense going?
Yeah, I think every line has an identity. With my line specifically, we just want to get pucks deep and hunt. I got 2 big bodies I'm playing with that can get the puck back. So just put it in places for them and, get the pucks to the net and just crash. So.
2 wins on this road trip. How important was it to get those 2 points tonight and move on to a 7-game homestand with that momentum?
Yeah, absolutely. We knew this trip's going to be important. We obviously see the standings and where we are. So, to get 2 wins on this trip and get home, it's going to be great.
You also have 2 games and 2 straight games. What are you liking about what's working for you and your line?
It's the NHL. It happens. There's 82 games, so sometimes they happen in stretches or whatever. It's I don't know. Just sometimes it goes in.
When you see a guy like Daniel Boo battling out with a guy like Matt Rumpy, what do you think that does to your team?
It's great. He's, I don't even know how old, 19, 20, 21. It's pretty impressive. Obviously, everyone knows who he is and what he brings to their team. So for him to get in there and battle is it's awesome to see.
Carl Malcolm made a couple glove saves to keep your team in it. How big was he tonight?
Yeah, he's huge. I think he's got top 3 wins in the league for a reason. He's been a rock for us all year, and hopefully we just continue to help him out.
Thanks, Cards.
Carcone's up to 8 goals. He had 7 goals all of last season. 2 years ago, he had 21 goals. Hey, how about Sean Durzi? That game-winning goal in overtime. He took a penalty in the third period. Was so frustrated about it, and then came out of the penalty box, almost scored to win it for Utah in regulation. Wins it in overtime. He's got 10 points in his last 12 games, and being healthy has just allowed him to do so much this year versus the injury-riddled inaugural season. We heard from Sean Durzi after the game.
Team win. What does this group take away from a game like this, especially at the end of a road trip?
Again, emotional one. I thought we did a good job staying mentally engaged. I loved our third period. But it's how can we refocus? How can we get ready for the next one? I thought this was a big one for us, obviously, finishing the road trip off on a good note. But now it's for our group, it's about, stacking wins and, getting points consistently.
When you talk about the details in terms of what made this successful, pressure at the end of it when this team was sticking around, what can you say about how you guys re-engaged?
Yeah, to explain it, I thought, sometimes we're playing hockey and, we're not grabbing a game and taking it. And I thought tonight we did a good job of going at them, being aggressive and taking, what they gave us, but doing it with intensity. And I thought that's important for us is how can we build momentum from that and then stacking shifts. You saw one line was going out there changing and, the other line's flying out there with the same intensity. So that's important for us. And, we have a really deep team and a lot of good players. So it's how can we all build this together and, keep moving forward. Obviously,
Gunther is a momentum changer. Carcone also in 2 straight games getting goals for your group. How is he a momentum changer as well?
Yeah, Karch has been, I'm not even going to say as of late, he's been awesome. Whether you guys see it on the ice or we see it in the room, he's a great guy for our group. He's a hell of a player. And I think lately, just thinking the game really well, using his legs, making smart hockey plays, not through them, but what they give him. And again, hell of a player and happy he's on our team.
Seemed pretty hot at the end of regulation on that call. Just what happened there and then what was the emotional roller coaster of that, the penalty box, and then scoring the winner?
Yeah, obviously you take one and I wasn't happy with it, but again, the ref, I know how fast the game is. The ref's going to make the calls he sees fit, but not to get too emotional, I lost my grandfather a few weeks ago. I said a little prayer in the penalty box hoping he had our back there, and then to kind of get that OT winner for him. And again, I'm going to try not to get emotional, but he was an important guy in my life, so it was nice to get that one for him.
Head coach Andre Turney telling us before the game, we win 2 out of 3, it's a good trip. We don't win, not a good trip. It was a really pivotal game for the Mammoth on Monday in Manhattan. And here's head coach Andre Turney after that game.
there you go. Another great performance by the guys. I think we played really good at 5-on-5. We applied a lot of pressure. We didn't give much. I didn't like our penalty. Take it the way you want. Say what you want about it. But I didn't like anything about it. And obviously, everything they create is off their power play. But at 5-on-5, I really liked our effort. What I like the most is the way we react in the third, the pace we had, the drive, the grit we had in the third. And I think we found a way to score a big goal and get the win.
Sometimes emotions obviously take it to a different level, but in this one, it was the intensity of those emotions that also helped Durzi in the end. What can you say about him in that effort?
Absolutely. I think Durzi is that kind of a guy in our locker room, in our team. He has that passion, that grit, that desire to excel. Those are intangible. You don't always see from the outside, but when you're in the inside, you're in the trenches with the guys. You see what he has no retreat in him. He's always go forward. So I like that about him a lot.
It felt like there was a lot of added pressure, or rather applied pressure in the third period. What was bend but don't break about that period?
Well, I think first period was excellent, a lot of pace. Second period, we got a little bit in the box trouble there, but still, we were not playing bad. But we're not playing with the same pace than we did in the first period, the same pressure, the same aggression. And when we get back at it in the third, I think, like I said, right from the first shift, the guys were on it. And that paid off.
Krausler and Schmaltz in overtime to help make that goal happen. What are you seeing out of their efforts and just all these underlying performances that help these guys score goals throughout these games?
I think those guys play really well. It's an important game for us. We have high expectations for us in the second half. We talk about hard and demanding was the schedule before Christmas, and we kind of battled through, and we were where we wanted to be, but we expect good thing for us in the second half. And that trip is important because you can go back home at 1-2, or you can go back 2-1, and that is the huge difference. And now we're playing 10 of the last 14 at home. We're by far the team who played the most game on the road in the league. So now we have an opportunity to balance everything out and to prove what we want, who we want to be. So I think it was a big game. Like I said to you before, we're playing really good hockey, but we need to find ways to win. It's not just winning the battle of the data, it's winning the game. And tonight we did both.
And we'll be talking all about it on Mammoth Daily today, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Utah Mammoth YouTube page, Mammoth Plus, SCG Plus. It's a Tuesday mailbag. We'll answer your questions. We'll get Mike's morning after, more on that big victory at New York. We'll look ahead to Wednesday's homestand opener against the Ottawa Senators. That's Mammoth Daily, and we'll be back with you coming up tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, Hockey Night in Utah on the AM side, 1280, the KSL Sports Zone.
There is the best of the postgame show. When we come back, Steve Cleveland talking about coaching transitions. Yes, you're friends with people. Yes, you have relationships with people, but it's also business. Steve's next. Stay with us. DJ and PK, it's 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. We're joined by former BYU basketball coach Steve Cleveland. Steve, good morning.
Morning, fellas.
So, Steve, we want to talk to you this morning about coaching, and watching all this go down with the football coaches and who stays and who goes to Michigan with Kyle and the hard feelings. I remember talking to Dave Rose when the first hint of you it was just a hint of you maybe going to Fresno, and Dave saying, I don't know. And I said, well, if this happens and then that, and he says, well, if he actually does go, if this is all true, then it's every coach for themselves. And it was just so cold-blooded. And I knew you two had a deep personal relationship. You'd known each other. You had a million stories, a million laughs, a million probably agonies as well. Looking at each other going into halftime, like, what are we going to say to these guys now? And you got all of that. But then when you get to that point where it is everybody for themselves, personal relationships and feelings can go up. How do you juggle that and all the people that you've known across coaching, you've seen probably in situations like this? Because I think people are trying to understand how this has happened with Kyle and why people would go with him and why people would stay and how you balance hey, it's like they say in The Godfather, it's business.
It is business. You know what? It's interesting because I've listened to a little bit of it as well and read some stuff in the papers and how people are upset about him leaving and this and that. It doesn't make sense. What an opportunity for him, and an opportunity to go to obviously a blue blood university in Michigan. I think what we tend to forget sometimes is all the amazing things that Kyle did at Utah. And I think that obviously Utah's had a great program and done well. Michigan is another level, another step. And I just don't think people should take it so personally. I mean, what would you do if you were in his seat and making those kinds of decisions? I mean, it's a no-brainer for me. And it doesn't take anything away from his love for Utah. And the thing about Kyle, he is a really, really genuine, authentic person. And not everyone is that. And the thing about Kyle that I've always loved, and when I first started coaching, he made an effort to come in and introduce himself to me. And I didn't know anybody when I came to BYU. Here's the guy that's at University of Utah, and met him at a meeting and at a luncheon. And I've always had good feelings about Kyle and that being a very genuine, authentic individual. I've always appreciated him about that. And I think people need to just take a step back, take a breath, and just relax. Hey, let's just reflect on the amazing things this man has done while he was at Utah, and it's an opportunity for him, for his family, and to take it to another level. And it's not to say that Utah or BYU or whoever it is isn't deserving of having the very best coach they can have, but I think Kyle made a great decision. He's taken some guys with him. And that's just part of the process. And people want to take it personal, then let them deal with it. But it's nonsense to think that Kyle wouldn't take it, that he wouldn't take coaches from other staffs. And that's part of the business, and get used to it.
I can remember when you were going to Fresno. I mean, you were like the first guy. Oh my gosh, BYU coaches don't leave, and Steve Cleveland is leaving BYU. What is he thinking? And obviously that was home for you, and you had other situations and financial packages which made sense. And a little funny story is, I thought, well, Dave Rose is the guy, right? And so I think story broke like on a Thursday or Friday. I remember it was a Saturday, and I was in Arizona visiting family, but that turned out to be a work trip. And so I call him on Saturday, and he must have saw my number and figured, I can't talk to this guy. But he didn't click it all the way, right? And he was in his car, and I could hear the radio. And I thought, well, I'll just wait this out. He's going to he'll pick up the phone at some point, and I'll still be on the line. He does not know that he didn't hang up completely. And I can't remember. It was probably at least 20 minutes, maybe even longer. I was just sitting there, and he was in the car, obviously driving somewhere. I figured it couldn't have been far. And sure enough, he goes to pick up the phone, and he thinks he's dialing, and hello, and it's still me. And so he then realized, Dave, I know you looked at my number and said, I can't talk to him now. But anyway, I talked to him, and I said, whatever you tell me here, I got too much invested in this. I'm not going to burn you, and I think most people know. And that was 20 years ago, and obviously 20 years later, they know I'm not going to burn him. And we talked about the job, and clearly he wanted it, and we all thought he was the right man for the job, and obviously Tom ended up giving it to him. So it's just a little funny story I thought I'd share. But I'm thinking about all these guys now that from Utah and from BYU are going to go to Michigan, and there's probably a good chance that many of these dudes have never been there, and they're going to be introduced. It's going to be so overwhelming, and I was wondering if you could share your experience when you went from Fresno to Provo. At least you had been to Provo, at least probably some, but how overwhelming, or how was it in terms of just, here's the job, and I got to meet all these people. I got to move. I got to get a place to stay. I got to get the electricity on. That seems like, man, that is just an overwhelming situation for these coaches that they have to go into with their families, and particularly if they have young kids, which you had younger kids at the time too.
Yep. Well, let me just speak for a moment about, BYU. And it was such a unique situation there. And as I was really, really surprised that they contacted me. And I'm at a community college. I've got a really good community college team. We're like the #1 team in the state, and I think life's good forever. And as we went through that process, and I think looking back, I'm sure people are going, Steve, who? What do they think? But for me personally, it was an opportunity, and obviously you got to get a staff together, and you all both know what the relationship that Dave, Rose, and I have had, and it's funny because as community college coaches, he was an outstanding community college coach, and I had done the same, but we didn't really know each other that well. I mean, we'd made contact, and I'd gone down to a tournament down in St. George and got to know him, and we kind of developed a friendship there. But I don't think either one of us ever thought, looking forward, that I would be the head coach and that he would be my associate head coach. And 8 years later, he's the head coach at BYU, and I'm back at Fresno State. But that's how things are. And I never felt, it was always a positive vibe. I love the people that I work for, and people can question, what was I thinking leaving BYU? But it was also something that I went back to family. I went back to a situation that I had a dear love for, and people talk about money and this and that. I you know what? That it's part of the process. But for me and my gut and feeling, it was like, this feels right. Going to BYU, having an amazing experience there, turning a program around, and then going to Fresno and trying doing the same thing. Looking back today, realize how difficult that process was going to be and what it was. But I just think in your heart, you make decisions. If I made decisions that I look back on and things in my life that I could have been better or should have maybe rethought this, yes. I don't think any of us, when you go through this process, but when I look at the football situation at Utah and what Kyle's doing, and there's nothing about that to me doesn't make sense. And he gave them everything at Utah, and he had a great staff. And there was coaches from BYU, coaches from Utah that are going with Kyle, and I believe that's what a great honor. What a great honor. And it's not taking anything from Utah. They have an outstanding football program. In the past, they've had amazing basketball there. It's a great institution. But going to Michigan is another level and next step. And anybody that's going to begrudge him for leaving, they're just not very smart. and really, not really good people and kind. And a guy gives you everything that Kyle gave, and then people are going to be critical of him and criticize him. Blow those people off. That's insane. It disgusts me that conversation even takes place. And so I'm happy for Kyle. I'm happy for his staff, the guys that have, the guys from BYU and Utah and other places that they've come to develop a great staff. And I'll always be their fans. It doesn't matter to me. Yes, I love BYU, but I love my experiences with coaches at Utah and watching from afar, football, basketball. And it just doesn't make sense that people would have that kind of an attitude. Just very narrow-minded. And honestly, with you, I'm not interested in hearing the nonsense that's coming out from some of these people on radio and TV.
It's one thing when it happens with with coaches, but now it's happening with players with the transfer portal. The Texas Tech is getting Cincinnati's quarterback for $5 million. The TCU quarterback's going to Indiana. The ASU quarterback's going to Kentucky or LSU, reportedly for at least $5 million. Iowa State's quarterback is following his coach to Penn State. So do we have to take the same attitude towards players? Because then in the era you coached and even more recently, just 5 years ago, people like to sit in the stands and look out, and I know that guy. I know his story. I followed him for 4 years. Well, that's out the window.
Well, yeah, I mean, when I look at the opportunities, I mean, you talked about the NIL. Well, we talked the transfer. Start with the transfer portal. I mean, I never saw that coming. Has it impacted collegiate sports? Absolutely. And, you know, and I think as a player who sometimes, when I was coaching and guys would come and they would leave and they'd go and do different things, it was always hard for coaches to lose guys or to find out somebody's going somewhere else. It seems like they're not loyal. What you committed to going to BYU or you're committed to going to Utah or Michigan, whatever it was, you felt like, hey, you know what? You decided to come here. Well, that's not the environment we live in anymore. And I mean, you just take a look at the transfer portal and guys being able to play in 3 or 4 programs in 3 or 4 years. I mean, I don't love that. But that's what it is, and it's not going to change. And no matter how much I gripe about it, that's what it is. And NIL money and the fact that guys are making millions of dollars, yeah, it didn't feel right. But I've lived long enough and seen this, and that's what it is. And we're now paying college athletes significant amounts of money, and that's the world that we live in. That's what the NC2A and all the governing bodies have decided to go. That's what they're doing. And I think for a long time, universities, schools, you guys have heard this, that millions and millions of dollars are being made and student athletes aren't really benefiting from it. And, it wasn't that way in 2005, and it wasn't that way in the late 90s, but it is the way it is today. And for me personally, I don't begrudge any young man who has an opportunity to improve himself in his circumstances financially or in a different school. I've kind of wrapped my arms around that and said I'm good with it. It's not the perfect world that I grew up in as a coach, but if that's what it is now, then good on you. And it's not just BYU and Utah. It's 300 different Division I schools that are changing and going through this process, and I just don't see any purpose in fighting it when that's what it is. And guess what? Student athletes are benefiting from this. Coaches are benefiting from this, and that's just what it is. And I know it's difficult to have coaches lose guys, but I think everybody's gotten used to the fact now that you're going to lose guys sometimes, and you're going to have to pay people to play. Those were things that would be disgusting and talk about 10, 15 years ago and think, what is going on? It's crazy. It is. But we have to just wrap our arms around it, get a feel for it, take a deep breath, and realize that this is the world we live in. Let's make good decisions. It doesn't take anything away from coaching staffs or players who have worked hard. And I get it. I get it that young people are now being paid significant amounts of money. And if you ask me if I'd like it to go back the old way, no. Because I think athletes were taken advantage of, and we didn't see the big picture and all the monies that were being collected and put into university programs. No more. And so that may surprise people that I feel that way, but this is the world we live in. Embrace it, get after it. The principles and the ethics of the game, I can't address because I've not really been or seen situations, and I'm sure there are some things that are kind of upside down. But right now, it's in front of everybody. This is how we play the game. This is what it's going to be. It's probably never going to change for a while. I can live with that. and I can live with that. And I don't begrudge players. I don't begrudge coaches for leaving and going to another program that they can enhance their own livelihood and their families and the benefits there. That's just part of what America is, and that's the world we live in.
The Cougars got a nice conference opening win at Kansas State, and they had almost double the average turnovers, which is 10, and they had 19. AJ had 7 of his own. And watching that game and going back to my beat days in college and listening to you and guys like Majerus talk about conference play, it takes on a whole nother level. The game gets far more physical, and that was AJ's first conference game, and they're trying to rough him up and body him as much as possible. And I do think that's a learning experience, and I doubt the rest of the season we'll see 7 turnovers from him individually, because that's way too many, obviously. But with that in mind, I'm assuming from what I know of you that game was par for the course when you get into conference play, and that's what you should expect every single time you play.
I completely agree. And I think the thing, too, now is in getting in conference play, you go through the first 10 or 11 games and you're 12-1 and you haven't had a close game. And, obviously they had a loss to BYU, had a loss to UConn. But when you get into conference play, the physicality of the game changes. And I think that, number one, the competition changes. I mean, playing these preseason games where you're winning by 30 and 40 points, yeah, that's part of the process. You get bye games, you do that. That's what it is. But when you get to conference play, it's a whole different thing. Playing on away in someone else's, convention center or arena, with 10, 20, 30,000 people screaming and going crazy, the intensity of the game, of just the competitiveness that takes place, it's just so much more fun to watch. And, you look at the Kansas State game, it was a 10-point game. AJ goes 24, he gets beat up. I mean, it was the physicality of that game was, we hadn't seen that in the last, 6-8 weeks of games. And but still, AJ 24, Tata had 11 and 16 rebounds.
Yeah.
What an amazing asset, this young man. I think about watching him play earlier on and then seeing him play now. It's just incredible to see. And Saunders has been who he is. Wright is a guy that this team is not what they are today if he's not in this. I mean, maybe they could have had someone else. But Wright has been a special addition to this team, and having the leadership and having his ability to get the ball to places and get the ball to guys and transition and in a half-court game. I think for me, if you're going to ask me who's been the biggest difference maker for me watching this team, it's Wright. And, every night it's, double figures. The other night against Kansas, 18, 4, and 5. He makes things happen. He hits big shots. He's he just has that experience of he doesn't play nervous.
No, he didn't get rattled.
Doesn't get rattled. His composure is amazing. And if I was going to give a guy the player of the month or whatever, or when we look back on this season, wherever they get, if they get to a Final Four, they win a national championship, they go to a Sweet 16, whatever happens. It doesn't happen if they don't have someone like Wright, and with his composure and ability to lead. And I watch it. You guys do the same thing. I mean, I'm watching games. I go there and watch games. I'm watching the players. I'm looking at what facial expressions. I'm looking at coaches, because those are the things that I dealt with as a coach. And I just see a lot of leadership on this team. And, and AJ's been thrown into a world where he'll be in the league next year, and there's all sorts of this and that. And that's tough to embrace and deal with. I think he's done a nice job of it. I know the couple of times that I've met him, he's just really personable, kind, and very respectful. And I watched him as he practiced in preseason. So he's obviously a special talent. But if you ask me, the two guys that have had the biggest influence on this team this year are Wright and Tata. And Tata has so improved and just dominating the boards and attacking the rim offensively and defensively. Fun to watch different guys. I don't think 3 months ago, we'd sit there and be talking about the huge influence that Wright and Keita have made. But obviously, they've been special. And if this team's going to go ahead and win a conference championship or get to deep run in the tournament or get to a Final Four, those two are going to be a big part of it.
I thought the most interesting word you threw in the middle of that answer was transition, because watching that game, seeing the physicality and all that, it feels like there's a pick your poison moment for BYU opponents now. There's very few teams of anyone who match up with Keita's size, physicality, athleticism, and relentlessness on the backboards. So I think most of them have to decide to defend with rebound with numbers. But if they do that, then BYU's transition game just carves them up. DeBanza in the open floor is a nightmare, right? And the open floor is a nightmare. So if you were prepping for this team, would you be getting numbers back because you're worried about, right, DeBanza, Saunders, everybody else in transition? Or would you be committing numbers to the glass because there's no other way to deal with Keita? And if he gets 16 boards, that's going to kill you too.
I think it's a point well made, because you're thinking about those players that we've talked about. And Keita he's a bonus. I mean, we've watched him play the last couple of years. This year, he's taken it to another level, how he protects the rim and how he gets up and down the floor. I mean, he runs like a gazelle. He's bouncing around. He gets his hands. He's got a motor unlike anybody else on that team. I mean, his motor is at a whole different level, offensively transitioning, defensively transitioning, relentless to the boards. You just can't, teams don't have guys like that. And not only do we have the talent of AJ and Saunders and Wright, you see the things that they bring to the table and their ability to score. But if you're asking me who's had the biggest influence on the success of this team, it's Keita. I guess the word is he's relentless, and his motor is always on, and it doesn't matter what the circumstances are. And when you're worrying about how we're going to guard AJ and how are we going to guard Saunders and how are we going to guard Wright, how are we going to deal, the focus of a game plan is going to be on what can we do to take things away from them. And we saw the physicality in the last game, and AJ was just bounced around. Well, welcome to Big 12 basketball.
Yeah.
And that's what it's going to be like, night in and night out. They'll get used to it. They'll get tougher, and I think they'll adjust just fine. But for me, looking at this team, Wright and Keita are the guys that really, if you take your point guard and your 5-man and you consider what they've done in the preseason and what they're now doing in conference play, BYU's a scary team to play. And now, mind you, I say that, but I mean, you're looking at a league where, did we forget about Houston? Did we forget about TCU or Arizona, who was 1 or 2 in the country? I mean, we're talking about BYU and who they are and what's going on. But this league is going to be really competitive. You can't sleep on anybody, especially that top 5 or 6 teams that all have a chance to be in the tournament, to get to a Final Four. Man, it's going to be fun to watch, and I can't wait to. It's so much fun to go to those games in person. And occasionally, I can't do that, and you watch them on television. But just getting close and being close enough to see the expressions and the anger and the energy and all the things that come with college basketball, and to see the excitement of the fans, and there's 20,000 folks or 19,000 at BYU going to those games. Very special time. Love being there, and love a coaching staff. Mind you, we're in a different world today. You guys, I know we haven't talked about it, but it's so funny for me to see like 18 guys on the bench.
Yeah, right. Coaches outnumber the players.
But yeah, but that kind of is kind of the way it is, and man, it's working. So don't mess with it. But that's probably the biggest adjustment for me. I don't know how you deal with that many people, but I like the 5, 6, 7 guys, who were. It was easier to control that and not be overwhelmed by it. But man, they're doing everything. Kevin Young is a special coach. He's got a great staff, and I love watching our team play. And there's some great opportunities here, and you'll see how it all plays out. But this is a team.
Right at the end of interviews, we seem to be having problems. Oh, you're back now. Okay.
It's not going to be a surprise to me to watch this team do special things this year, and you'll contributions from everyone. And then I go back to the coaching staff is just superb, and there's just such a good feel about watching them and the intensity which they play. So hang on, everyone. I think what we're about to watch is going to be really fun and really special for the fan base.
He's Steve Cleveland. He joins us every week right here on The Zone. Thanks, Steve. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
There's Steve Cleveland. When we come back, what is trending? The headlines are next.